Ever think about how a tiny seed, like, I don't know, uh, transforms into a towering tree?
Hmm.
Today we're diving into the mind of a poet who saw those transformations in a revolutionary way. Johann Wolfgang von Goethe. You might know him for his literary works, but Goethe was also deeply fascinated by botany.
And that's what's so fascinating about him. He really straddled both worlds, art and science, and brought a unique perspective to both.
Exactly. In his book, The Metamorphosis of Plants, he presents this incredible idea that plants are constantly in motion, always becoming something new. We'll be exploring those ideas today, using excerpts you shared with us. Hopefully we'll all see nature with fresh eyes by the end of this.
I think we will. Goethe's work still feels surprisingly relevant even centuries later.
Okay, so let's dive into one of his most radical ideas. The Urflack analyzes the archetypal plant. I'll admit, it took me a minute to wrap my head around this one.
It's a head-scratcher, for sure. Goethe wasn't looking for a literal plant, like some mythical specimen. Instead, he was interested in the force-driving plant development, that invisible blueprint guiding their growth.
So it's more like how a sculptor sees a future masterpiece hidden within a block of stone, right? Goethe thought there was a similar potential hidden within every seed, every stem.
Precisely. And for Goethe, the key to unlocking this blueprint was the leaf. He believed that every single part of a plant, from the stem to the flower, was actually a modification of this one fundamental organ.
Wait, so he's saying even a flower is just a really fancy leaf?
In a way, yes. Goethe meticulously observed how simple leaves could morph into more complex structures. He uses the date palm as an example. Have you ever noticed how its leaves divide and become more intricate as they grow, almost resembling branches?
Actually, now that you mention it, yes. I never thought of it that way.
It's a prime example of what Goethe was getting at. And it's not just the date palm. He talks about citrus trees too. In some species, even the leaf stalk, what botanists call the petiole, can start to resemble a leaf itself.
Wow, so it's like these subtle transitions or whispering clues about a plant's hidden potential. Kind of makes you want to take a closer look at the next houseplant you see, doesn't it?
It really does. Goethe's observations, they challenge us to look beyond just the outward appearance of a plant and understand the forces shaping its growth.
And speaking of forces, that's where Goethe's ideas about intensification and polarity come into play, right?
Exactly. He saw these two forces as the driving engine behind the plant's metamorphosis. Think of intensification as nature's constant striving for greater complexity.
Like moving from the single seed to a whole network of branches and leaves.
Precisely. It's about the unfolding of potential, this continual push towards a richer, more intricate expression of life. And polarity is the other half of that equation. It's all about the interplay of opposites, expansion and contraction.
Okay, I'm picturing an accordion here, expanding and contracting to create music. Is that kind of what Goethe was getting at?
It's a great analogy. Goethe believed that plant development wasn't just a straight line from seed to flower to fruit. It was this rhythmic back and forth, a dance between these opposing forces. He even broke it down into 6 distinct steps.
6 steps, lay it on me.
So, it starts with expansion, right? The seed germinates, pushing out roots and sending up its first shoot, those initial stem leaves.
Right, that burst of new life.
Then comes contraction. Those stem leaves pull back, they kind of gather themselves and form the calyx, that tight protective bud around the flower.
Ah, so that's what's happening there. It's like the plant is taking a breath, pausing before its big reveal.
Exactly. And from that point of contraction, we get another burst of expansion as the sepals of the calyx unfold into the beautiful petals of the flower.
It's like a symphony, moving from one movement to the next.
And just like a symphony, there are moments of quiet after a grand crescendo. The petals, having reached their peak, contract inwards, giving way to the reproductive parts of the flower, the pistil and the stamens.
So even in that inward movement, there's this incredible purpose, this drive to create something new.
Precisely. And that brings us to the penultimate expansion, the development of the flower into fruit, a vessel for the next generation.
It's like the plant is pouring all its energy into ensuring its legacy.
And then, finally, we come full circle with a final contraction as the fruit releases its seeds, each one containing the potential to begin the cycle anew.
Wow. That's incredible. To think that this whole dance of expansion and contraction, this ebb and flow of energy, is happening all around us, in every garden, every forest, every park.
It's a whole new way of seeing the plant world, isn't it? And it gets to the heart of Goethe's approach to science, which he called delicate empiricism.
Okay. Delicate empiricism. Tell me more about that. It sounds delicate. It does sound delicate, doesn't it? Like delicate empiricism is like all science is about observation, isn't it?
It is, but Goethe's approach was about more than just looking through a microscope. He believed in combining meticulous observation with a kind of, imaginative participation. He wanted to feel the forces at play in nature, to understand them from within, not just observe them from a distance.
So it's like almost empathy for plants, trying to see the world through their roots and leaves.
Exactly. And he gives this great example in the book about the water buttercup. You know how its leaves change shape depending on whether they're submerged in water or floating above.
I think so, yeah. The underwater leaves are all like thin and wispy, right?
Right.
But the ones above water look like, regular leaves.
Exactly. Goethe saw this as the plant expressing its Erbfläche in response to its environment. It wasn't just following a fixed blueprint, but adapting and transforming based on these external factors.
Okay, so if we bring this back to delicate empiricism, he's saying by really tuning into those subtle transformations, we can kind of get a glimpse of that dynamic interplay between a plant's inner potential and like the world around it.
Exactly. And what's really amazing is that this idea, this delicate empiricism, it's not just limited to botany. It can apply to so many areas of life.
Oh, interesting. So you mean like how we respond to challenges, the ways we grow and adapt over time. You're saying there's a little Erbpflanze in all of us.
Yeah, think about it. What patterns of expansion and contraction do you see in your own life? What forces have kind of shaped your own personal journey?
Wow, that's a really interesting question. It's like Goethe is giving us this whole new framework for understanding not just plants, but ourselves.
And that's the beauty of his work. The Metamorphosis of Plants isn't just a, botanical treatise. It's an invitation to see the world with fresh eyes, to embrace that constant dance of transformation happening all around us.
Yeah, it's a reminder that even in the midst of change, there's this underlying pattern, this like beautiful rhythm that kind of connects us all.
And who knows what other hidden connections and transformations we might discover if we just approach the world with that kind of delicate empiricism.
Well said. That wraps up our deep dive into Goethe's Metamorphosis of Plants. We hope you've enjoyed this journey and that you'll keep exploring these ideas long after the episode ends. Remember to get outside, observe with curiosity, and see what transformations you can unearth both in the natural world and within yourselves.